All right, we're about to go on. Let me know when y'all see it.
Okay. It's on now. All right.
It's on? Awesome. Give me a second, I'll be able to see you guys. All right. So we're live, Mr. Dixon?
We are live.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Sir Walter, did you share it on your page, sir?
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, let me look for
Outstanding.
I'm following the suit.
Outstanding.
Uh-oh.
Hey, we're not having no auditions tonight. Mr. Dixon.
That goes right with tonight's show.
We're not doing no auditions and
All
trying
right.
to your 15th record deal now. Come on now.
You got the right one here tonight. Me and Sir Walter is the minstrels of the hour.
Yeah, come on now.
Yeah, come on with it now. Come on now.
Yeah.
All right, you two. Well, Sir Walter, welcome to this edition of the Hot Seat. You are our honored guest on this evening. We definitely appreciate you being on the show with us. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'm
Awesome.
honored.
All right. Well, we're going to get started in prayer really quickly. Um, Charles, how about you open us up in prayer tonight?
Oh, dear Lord God, we thank you for this ensemble here on tonight, this gathering, Lord, that we are bringing the glory to your name. Although we are reaching the masses, both Christian and secular, we pray and we ask that you guide us, give us wisdom. We ask that you would prepare the ears and the heart to hear what Mr. Walter has to impart on to us tonight. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So, Sir Walter, tell us a little bit about yourself first before we dive into this book that you've written here.
Sure. I'm a simple guy, old school, come from a big family, 9 of us. Father's from Mississippi, mom is from Arkansas, and I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago,
Mm.
in the hood, you know,
Okay.
and was raised up um, in church, of course.
Mm.
We had a very close knit family. We still do. 7 boys back to back,
Mm.
and then
Oh, wow.
two girls came later on. You know, and all of us became musicians, and then we became ministers.
Mm.
Most of us did,
Wow.
and then we started going into relationships, getting married, and divorced, and then married, stuff like
Mm.
that. Your typical situation in some cases. It doesn't matter. A lot of times the father and the mother is home, and my mom and dad have been married to each other for over 50 something years,
Mm-hmm.
almost 60 years now. But yet sometimes the children tend to go out and
Do them.
do them,
Right.
and then they bump heads.
Yeah.
And then they go and do them again, and then why am I not like my parents
Right.
Right.
in marriage?
Yeah.
So my book is kind of gives you an idea of why these things happened the way they did with myself and my siblings, the men in my family. That is, I have 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
I have my son Walter Jones Jr. and my daughter. They both are in their upper 20s. My son is knocking on 30, and I've adopted a few children as well. So,
Awesome.
Awesome, man.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I am going to read this narrative that Mr. Dixon so eloquently put together for tonight's show, and we're going to dive in from there. Is that all right, gentlemen?
That is fine.
All right. All right. In the ever-looming world of the Man-Woman Chronicles, there is a resounding question that always surfaces from the voice of the woman. What do men really want? Well, Sir Walter Jones has attempted to break the code by breaking down the 4 women that men want from his perspective. He covers the 4 types of women in a way that intrigues the mind. The side chick, she knows her role. The mistress, she's his moon and he's the high tide. The soulmate, she's homegrown. And last but certainly not least, the fatal attraction. She wants to be loved. She wants to be good, but evil is present. So, with that, we are empowered to serve, empowered to give, and empowered to love. The book is called The Four Women That Men Desire by Sir Walter Jones. Sir Walter, let me start by saying this. Um,
I'm
Charles,
scared.
Charles, you should have worn black and white for a referee outfit for tonight. Sir Walter,
Yes.
Dr. Dixon sent me the book this past weekend, and I'm in school right now for communications and public speaking. And as I was writing my paper for school, I so happened to say, let me pause for just a moment and just kind of start reading this book. And so one thing led to another, and 2 hours later, I had to get back to writing my paper because I was like, "What the hell? That is this?" So, needless to say, I have ingested the book in its entirety. Okay, so it was an interesting read to say the least.
Sure.
So I want to first off, I want to know what was it or what event possibly happened that made you say, hey, I'm going to write a book about these particular four types of women?
Sure. I hosted a radio show for almost 9 years, well, almost 10 years now. And I was on the air every night for 2 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to try to find something to talk about one day. This was a Monday. Every night is a different topic. Monday was called the Men's Chronicles, I called it.
Mm-hmm.
A Woman's Guide to Men. And then Tuesday was called Pink Perspective. It was a show about women. So I had women on the show. All right. The other nights don't really matter right now. But so Monday when I came to the station, before I came to the station, I didn't really have anything to talk about. I didn't know. I got 2 hours to talk. What do I talk about? Mm-hmm. So I went online because it was a men's show that night, and I wanted to find out what's the world saying about relationships and men. I stumbled upon a website that says, ask the question, why do men choose one woman over another?
Okay.
So as I began to study the website, I thought, oh, I see. Well, yeah, I could have written this website myself because everything they were saying was pretty much correct. This is why we choose different women. Okay. So I decided, all right, tonight I'm going to talk about the 3 women that men desire. Because as I looked at the website, he had all these different women, but I narrowed them all down to 3. I said the 3 women that men desire, and I went on the air. And the show is still live. It's up on the internet. And while I was doing the show, it dawned on me, right there live, that there's a 4th woman. There's a 4th woman. Wow, I didn't even think about it. And I was talking to my co-host. He says, how was that? I said, that, and we'll talk about it in the book. That girl, she's the 4th woman. And so we did the show. And that was a couple years ago. I didn't think about writing a book about that. And I aired a year, and I aired another year. And last year, I was having a conversation with my daughter about boys. Asked her, you see any boys? You thinking about marriage and blah, blah, blah. And the way she was responding to me made me concerned. I was. Because I'm thinking, what are these boys seeing in my daughter? And
am I preparing her?
Am I preparing her? And what was I seeing in all these women? What was I seeing in her mom? I said, you know what? I need to talk about this more. And I had her to come on the show.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I said, you know what? I think it's time to write about this. I've always wanted to write a book, but never about that.
Okay.
And then I said, I'm gonna write. And I called my editor. And I told her, I'm going to write a book, and can you edit it? She said, yes. I said, but I need someone to structure it. I never wrote it in the book. And I sat with her, and I told her my vision. And she said, okay. I'm gonna help you structure it all out.
Okay.
You're a great songwriter, but you don't know nothing about the book industry.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I began to pen it out from that very first show to my daughter, to watching how my father treated my mom,
Okay.
to seeing how men interacted with my sisters,
Okay.
to see my aunties, the way they interacted with their husbands and things like that. I came to this conclusion: there's only 4 women, and this is why these men are attracted to these women.
Okay. 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 Interesting. Well, you know, we're gonna agree to disagree that there's 4 different types of women. We're gonna disagree.
I get that a lot.
We gotta agree to disagree on that because you know, I know some women that don't fit into either of these categories, and you know,
I would love to hear you.
Well, we'll talk about that on another show. We're gonna stay focused
okay.
relevant at this time. We're gonna stay focused on what's relevant because there's a lot of meat and potatoes in here. We don't want to miss, you know, the meat and potatoes, Walter, by sidetracking into my perspective. This is not about me. This is all about you. Okay.
You want to hear?
So as I said before, I actually have the book printed out in totality, you know, with my little highlights and lowlights. So we're gonna start off with this girl. Well, let's first of all identify all 4. You got the girl A, who is the side piece, the side chick. You got girl B, who is the mistress. You got girl C, who is the soulmate, and then you got girl 4, who is identified as the fatal attractant, aka the lunatic. So we're going to start off with girl A. Now, mind you, Walter, I have heard a number of descriptions for a side piece, but none quite like this. Okay. As I started to read this and I started to ingest, you know, what you had on here, allow me to read the profile of this particular woman, if you will. A man desires this woman because the sexual encounters with her are extremely gratifying. It is mutually understood that she only serves one purpose in his life. They have a no-string attached relationship. That is the profile of this particular woman, okay? So, with that being said, there is a lot of descriptive information that you put encompassed into breaking that down as to what that really means. Can you, in your own words, kind of give us a synopsis of the attributes of this particular female and what? And don't take this the wrong way. I don't want you to be offended by what I'm about to say. But what makes you an authority on this particular female? Have you had an encounter with this woman in your personal life that makes you able to speak directly to who she is as an individual?
Yes, I've dated and married all 4 women.
Oh my Lord, my Lord.
You understand?
Yeah.
I'm an authority on all 4 women.
Okay, all right, on tonight.
This book is a tell-all of my life.
Okay.
Right? Because when you read in depth, you'll see my stories in there. I talk about all 4 women and my experiences with them.
Awesome.
Now, it's not just my story, it's the story of my brothers. It's the story of my father and my uncles. It's the story of Dixon. It's the story of most men that I have told and seen written in movies and TV shows. It is the story of men. And when I talk to women, many of them will say, "Oh, this no, it can't be." Well, in the book, in the introduction or the author's notes, notice I say, whenever you're stumped in the book and you're confused, go back to the cover of the book.
Right, I saw that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is a man's God. Okay.
Identify.
Yeah, this is right. This is the man's identity. All right. It's a woman's guide to men, but it's from a man's point of view.
Yeah.
All right. So you're gonna, and I think to answer your question with girl A, this girl is and it's not that easy to describe her without describing the girl B, because some people try to figure out why is it that there's a side chick and a mistress. Wouldn't they be the same? And they are not.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So whatever you don't see in girl A, you will see in girl B, and vice versa. But girl A is a piece. That's all she is to him. She's sad.
Sound's gone. No sound. Can't hear you. We can't hear you. It sounds gone. Your sound is completely gone. There it is.
Okay, it's back. It's fine.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, it's back. His thing was turned over here.
Okay.
Um, girl A is pretty much his meat pleaser, all right, and not MEET, but MEAT.
Yeah.
And that's all she is for him. Now, how? In a plethora of ways that I described. And if you notice how I wrote the book, I wrote it in an outline form.
Correct.
Because it's a guide. And I wanted to guide the reader in an outline form because I wanted to prepare them also for the 6 books that comes after it. All right?
Okay.
Because each girl will have her own book. And the books will be based off of the guide of this particular book.
Okay.
And so this girl is her main job in his mind. Doesn't matter her mind. It's his mind. She is to sexually please him like a king would have all his concubines. He's not necessarily in love with them. He just laid with them when he just have that urge.
Right.
And then he moves on. And that's what this side piece represents to him.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. When you put it in that context, concubines played a stronger role than just sex. Concubines were used for a lot more reasons than just sex. In this particular dynamic that you put in here, this particular person, it was interesting because you went so far as to say she takes care of his kids. She makes certain that he has financial needs met and a number of other things, yet this woman is not identified with him in any regard. You even went so far as to state that in some instances the woman is not hygienically healthy, basically. So my question to you is, what type of man would engage himself with this type of woman anyway? What would be going on in his mind for him to even find himself involved in the life of this type of woman? Because based on what you said, this is a distasteful being.
You want a side piece?
You're talking about side piece, right?
Yeah.
Sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about sex. And if you hear the conversation coming from men, you'll hear, and I've alluded in the book, the vagina has no face.
Right.
And
That's all. Mm-hmm.
then, when I was coming up, when boys, we talk about sex a lot. We say, just put a bag over her face.
Wow.
You understand?
Yeah.
So the question that you're giving me, it's typical coming from a woman to ask those questions. Men got it right away, chapter 1. All the men that read the book says, oh my God, that was my girl when I was 21. That was my girl just a few months ago. That's her.
Yeah.
Okay? Because these are the experiences of men. Men have this urge of sex, and that girl is the one that always says yes to him. And then he uses her in other ways, so that he can continue that. So he builds this profile. He builds this world in her. That's why when she's taking care of him in different ways, she's doing that, and he makes sure that she continues to feel like she is giving to him the things that he needs. In return, he gets sex. In return for her, though, she has this feeling of security. She feels that, wow, he chose me over all these other women. Yeah. It's the attribute of
relevancy.
Yeah, it really is. And it's really like the wolf pack. Yeah. The alpha male lays the seed. Right. So the lion and the lioness whole situation. And I talk about the animal kingdom in here quite a bit.
Right.
Men.
Right.
Yeah, so the men are like the animal kingdom to this side chick sense, all right? And if you look, and that's why again look at some of the reality TV shows. Look at Flavor Flav shows. There's something of love, flavor of love, right? Look at The Bachelor. Look at this. men love to be that person because a lot of times these women are just a piece of meat to him.
Mhm.
And so the attribute of the concubine, that's correct what you said. But
Mhm.
notice in the book I talk about all the things that she does for him. So she is like a concubine to him.
So if that being so, and he allows her to be positioned to be in the presence of his children and things like that, then there's an error suggestion that he doesn't just see her as a piece of meat. Because if he saw her as just basically a piece of meat, then why would he expose anything or anyone attached to him in any regard to this female at all, ever? Why would he subject any probability of there being a leak in the building, if you will? Because if you subject your children to someone, there's a probability that that child may go back and render some type of conversation with their mother. Because apparently, based on the dynamic of what you have in here, you're saying she's probably a single mother. There's a probability she's come from a broken home. Blah 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 blah, so on and so forth. With that particular type of instance, then why would he subject himself to the probability of getting caught?
I think there is a play on words that's probably throwing you. And I think what you're hearing out of the whole thing is meat, pleaser, sex, and that's just for that. And really, and I think he's giving you the end all simplification of what it is. But really, it's the thing was, I had posted something today, and I said, why do we sow into deceitful arrangements, and when we have normalcy we withhold, and we don't necessarily give all that we need to give to our main person, but this other person, they begin that it doesn't matter, like you said, if she's not the best looking, whatever it is, she's not this, that, and the other, but she's in the right position at the right time, and because she's in this position, she's able to witness your things. You might, because around a side person, you're not as tense. Your phone ring, yeah, hey, look, I'm gonna bring the groceries home. She get on my nerve, keep calling me. You're doing things that you would never do with your wife or whoever. You're doing all this comfortable things with this person, and so she's able to go back behind your back and say, "Oh, Walter called me because I know his wife is work at 3:30. He got to pick his daughter up at so and so time, and then he'll be right here to see me." That's typically the conversation on the other side, because even though you have placed them in a position, they still feel like they know so much about you because you've given them access. And so it's all a risk, because it is a risk. Whatever way you play it, it's a risk, because anytime you give any person access, they can use that access against you. Right?
And he's right. If you ever watch a TV show called To Catch a Predator, with Chris Hansen, I think it's called. Keep watch. If you pay attention to that show, notice the men who come over to have his way with those girls.
Yeah.
All right. In a couple of cases, a couple of the brothers brought their children with them to this house. All right, to have sex with these little girls.
Right.
And one had somebody in the car, tell them to stay in the car. It makes no sense to women that men do this. Why? Because he's driven by this thing that's inside of him.
Yeah.
And even if it costs his marriage, his children, his freedom, his job, his house, it doesn't matter. He wants that one moment of satisfaction, even if it costs everything. So the book is not about what's right or what's wrong. The book is about what is.
Yeah.
And that is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's ridiculous. That's why
we risk it all.
Yeah, we risk it all just to get laid for 5 minutes. Yeah. Now she's pregnant, or there might be an STD, or AIDS, or anything can happen. Yeah. But we get this sexual urge, and we like a bull in a china, we just want it. So this girl A serves that purpose. That she gonna say yes no matter what. I'm horny right now, and she gonna say yes, and in return she gets all these other things. And I talk about in the book how she's void, she's empty. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's empty, but she continues. So his chaos is equal to her chaos. They both don't love each other, meaning themselves. They don't love themselves.
Can't be.
Mm.
I mean, that kind of brings to when you talk about the behaviors, it brings me to an instance inside this particular female where you said it's the bathroom effect. She see the urinal, use the urinal. You don't have to desire to use the restroom until you see the urinal. Some men don't want to have sex until they see girl A because she reminds them of pornographical images and stirs the lust in him. Also, he figuratively dumps all over her. She scratches all his itches. She satisfies all his fetishes: toe sucking, anal sex, oral sex. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, interesting.
Yes. And that's the reality. That is the reality of a man. That's what he sees. And somebody had to tell it. For me to give you this Febreze in the book, you're not. I want my daughter to understand these dudes want to lay with you and this is how they see you.
Yeah.
They see you just like that because I saw that girl just like that guy seeing you.
Wow.
And you got to know this. You got to know this. And then you make an educated decision whether you change your appearance
Mm-hmm.
or you might be fine. But what you think you are, a man may not think you're that way. And that's why
That was inside of your I want to say I saw that inside of the author's notes possibly
yes.
where you made
You did read
It's
the book.
their homework, huh?
You did your homework.
Oh, honey, don't come for me, honey. Don't ever come for me. Honey, I'm not the right one, honey, because when I say I read the book, I can tell you there's even an honorable mention about Charles' show on page 102.
Yes. I thought
Oh, yeah. Y'all don't play with me, honey. Y'all got the right one tonight, honey. Mm-mm.
I love it.
Okay. So it's oh man, that kind of I don't know, that kind of really made me kind of wonder about the value that we place on ourselves encompassed in the scope of how we behave, why we behave the way we behave, what prompts us to go to these type of behaviors. And it kind of made my heart bleed because it made me want to go find somebody that, was going through that and grab her and say, girl, you don't have to do that. No, don't do it. Kind of, it prompted that homing device in me as a spirit being, not just a natural woman, but as a spirit being to want to literally go and get somebody out of the hog pen, basically. You understand what I'm saying?
And that is the review that I'm getting from women.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling me, oh my God, Walter, yeah. One missionary came to me in church. He said, Walter, that's me. I'm girl A.
Mm-hmm.
I was the side chick before I married my husband. She said, every part of that girl was me in college.
Wow.
I was shocked. I was shocked.
That's scary.
Yeah. It frightened me. But she says, thank God for deliverance. She says, I'm reading this to my daughter because I don't want her to be like me. I couldn't explain it, but at least from a man's perspective, now she can hear it now from me and then the man. So when I hear the fight back against the book, I'm like, good.
Well, here's the thing. Now the audience is hollering for what is the mistress. They like move on to the mistress.
Oh my God!
Who robbing this train?
Well, look in the comments. I'm saying this. I'm saying that's what the audience is saying. The audience is saying on tonight that they like.
I'm already there.
But you know what it is? People trying to understand what the difference is. They're like, you got side chick. So what is the
I'm already there, Mr. Dixon. I was just waiting on.
I don't want to have to shift my seat tonight. No, go ahead. I'm saying. Go ahead.
They do this a lot, y'all. I watched the show. They do this a lot.
We go at this all the time. Right?
On tonight, I just want Dr. Dixon to just calm down and let the ladies drive the car. I'm driving today. It's okay. Let me drive one time. Let me drive. I promise you we won't end up in a ditch. I promise.
All right.
Okay, I'm not driving drunk. I'm not under any influence. Okay. All right, so the next female that we're going to be talking about is, I want to dance around a little bit. I don't want to do it directly as it's set up in the book. I want to dance around. Right. I want to head straight to this fatal attraction female, if you will. I kind of was looking at that, and there was a number of things that made me kind of ponder this particular human. Okay, as far as with this fatal attraction, there was another thing that I wanted to mention to you, Walter, that kind of kind of stuck with me, but we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But the profile, she truly is a fatal attraction. This is a woman that may be beautiful, like the mistress, but his enjoyment is connected to the sexual domination he experiences with her. Although she may be mentally unstable for him, the risk is well worth the reward. Now, ironically, I saw a component in there where you wedged yourself into the equation with this female when you spoke about the young lady that you were in a relationship with, where she started bringing clothes over to your house and things of that nature, and she kind of basically moved in subtly on her own reconnaissance. And you were talking about how when you went back to address her, how she got all aggressive and agitated and aggravated, and you realized in that moment that you were dealing with someone who you weren't privy to previously. This person turned on you, basically, is what happened in a nutshell. But this particular person, I saw in here where you use the analogy about the fatal attraction with Glenn Close and the White Rabbit. You know, we all know about the White Rabbit with Glenn Close. But there were some interesting components in here that you had when you spoke about this woman being, she's almost like too perfect to be perfect in the way that you described this woman. And then towards the end of your description, you talk about her psychotic side, you know, basically almost as though this woman has some type of mental defect in which she has maybe possibly split personalities or some kind of mental components going on. First of all, you know, how does a guy identify this woman without her flipping a switch? Is there a way to identify her without flipping a switch? And tell us a little bit more in depth about the story about how this affected you directly.
Sure. The first one, how does he identifies her? In many cases, he don't see it until it's too late.
Okay.
I referenced the Martin Lawrence movie, The Thin Line.
Right. Thin Line Between Love and Hate. Mm-hmm.
Yes, he didn't see it until he said, "I love you."
Right.
She said, "Don't tell me that."
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Right.
But he only said it because
he wanted
Right.
And he said it because he wanted to have sex with her.
Right.
And when she says, "Do you love me?" he hesitated and he thought in his mind, "Do I say it? All right, I love you, and then bam, he got sex. All right. So he was treating her like a girl. Hey, that's pretty much really what he wanted from her. He couldn't have her really. He didn't really want her in any other lifelong situation. He just wanted the sex.
Right.
It was convenience and benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And then she flipped the switch.
Right.
All right. So in many cases, the brothers don't see it until he does something bad. He's looking at a woman across the room, and then she noticed it, and then something clicks. You see what I'm saying? So that's when he notices it, is when it's too late.
Well, but P. Coffee, to get a little, since
Charles, break it down for us on
Sir Walter had talked about the Febreze. Let me spread a little bit on the show.
Oh, Lord.
The reason men don't see this is because I am convinced there is a switch down embedded somewhere that when it is flipped, things twist. Now, this is usually post-intimacy, if you're following me what I'm trying to say. There was a switch somewhere, position, right?
Mr. Dixon, why don't you say what you mean on tonight instead of dancing around? Go ahead and say what you mean. I'm thick-skinned. I want you to say exactly what you mean.
There is a switch inside with a piece of tape on it that says crazy. That when the man is inside the woman, and when he flips this switch, he doesn't know what's going on. He's just thinking he's being Superman. But after that, when he leaves that bedside, the woman comes up, she's like, and he don't see that. And from that day on, his life has changed forever. He has now entered into the crazy zone. And I'm going to tell you, the ones who are crazy, they start off the most lackadaisical. They are like, oh, call me later. No big deal. See you, watch you look nice today, whatever. Until you tap over into that other realm. And when you get into that other realm, you cannot go back to it. Yeah. Because now it could be the slightest thing. You could be like, hey, I'm calling you back. Oh, really? 3 hours later, Walter? You told me 10 minutes. You sitting there like, that's your first sign, like, wait a minute. And then it just escalates from there. Yeah. So you know you're in trouble after that.
it sounds like it sounds as though you need to beware of the woman who is too lackadaisical in the inception.
No, but see, most women we look for that peaceful greeting up front. So no one just is going in saying be crazy today. We want you to entreat us and be however you're gonna be, right? Be calm. It's just that we don't want the switch up. It's like you don't want the switch up. It's like women, y'all are dreading, is he gonna call me the next day, this, that, and other. We're thinking, don't be crazy. Be normal, please. That's what we're thinking. You know what
So
I'm saying?
are you suggesting that the penis is causing these problems on tonight, Mr. Dixon?
It is certainly a component. Let me just say, the penis is a component, and what we speak into her ear is another component, because that's what sets her off. Wait a minute, that is not what you told me, Walter. You promised me this. And when you don't make good on them promises, you have some problems with it.
My Lord, on tonight. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think I'm reading the comments. I think Miss Rika Benson nailed it. Okay, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but she says, but there is a warning, and guys see it as a challenge.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
But then when we flip, we crazy.
Yes.
Okay, so again, I speak of that in the book as well, because the very thing that we find attractive, we then find it's
Crazy. It's like a deterrent later. Later, it's
some point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So when I was dating this woman, she didn't really change. She was exemplifying all of the attributes
that you saw all along.
that I saw that was going to come later. It's just that was a part of the crazy. Look at our president. To one side of a political party, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. All right, but to the other party, he's crazy as I don't know what. All right, he's being the same guy.
Right.
He hasn't changed.
Let's not bring him into the
Okay, all right.
That was a code right there.
Yeah,
don't bring him into the equation, because I don't want to go and change into my political attire to deal with him.
Please don't do that.
No.
All right? Yeah. So these things that my girlfriend was doing at the time was cute. I thought she was having a bad day. That was the crazy in her rearing his head for a little while. I'm like, oh, she's just having a bad day. Girl, you're going to be all right. Later on, fast forward a year later, that thing that comes up, that was a death sentence for me.
Yeah.
It's me, get out the house, boy. Do something. Do something.
And here's the other component is a lot of time, if we're honest, the reason the psychotic, as you put it, or the fatal attraction is able to gain so much traction, because normally the reason she's able to be crazy, because there is an element of cockiness, because most times she's either very attractive, she got she's together, you get my drift, or she's good at what she has a specific set of skills, as we put it. She's good at what she does, and so we are challenged with the trade-off of she get on my nerves.
Yes.
But until it gets to the point where it's like it becomes not funny anymore. It's like, wait a minute.
Yes.
You risk now you done did something to my car, you are risking my job, you threatening where I live, you get me off. Then it becomes the game shit. But at first it's fun, it's stroking, you get my drift, it's psychological making you feel like, oh, I really drove this person crazy. You get all your ego, but it's a dangerous game. Trust me.
So Charles, based on the dynamics in which you just spoke, Charles, it leads one to believe, as an investigative individual, being myself, as I am being on the show on tonight, it leads me to believe that you've had a personal encounter with this individual on tonight.
Yes, I have been one. If I'm being honest, do any of you all know who Evel Knievel is?
Oh my God!
I have been
broke every bone.
I was the person who always needed the risk factor to stay engaged, because my brain moves like this, so I'm easily bored or disengaged, right? So for me, sometimes the lesson I had to learn was, just because it was exciting or a little bit of too much of an edge doesn't make it something that you need to possess.
Yes.
So sometimes crazy just means crazy.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you go away and be the doctor and fix them. It just means they're not for you. It don't fit. Leave them alone.
Yes.
And so for me, I was daredevil in dating. Give me the projects that needs to be. She said she only stabbed him. It's okay, but she looked good though. You understand what I'm saying? So it was just I wanted to take on the project so that I could reap the reward of the change. You understand what I'm saying?
So you've been since delivered. Is what I'm
Oh,
hoping.
absolutely. Yes, I have learned.
Hallelujah.
If I wasn't delivered on tonight, you probably would be hearing the door knocking and boxing the window. But otherwise, I'm delivered.
My Lord on tonight. Okay. Moving right on. Time is of the essence.
Let's go to the other woman, whoever she's going to be.
I'm going. I'm right here. I'm right here. You trying to drive the car again? You don't.
I'm the time guy. I'm trying to keep us focused.
You don't get us in an accident. You trying to drive the car? Okay. So we're gonna move over to the mistress. One thing I did notice inside the book, which I want to go ahead and address now, so that I can make sure I can get it out. Walter, I saw several various effects. You talk about you remind me of my Jeep effect, the eye of the beholder effect, the urinal effect. There's various effects, okay? And there was a point inside the book where you did some recognition of movie stars from back in the day. You talked about Mary Ellen, and you talked about Ginger. You talked about the Dukes of Hazzard, the girl from the Dukes of Hazzard. You talked about I Dream of Jeannie. Just a number of it. But what I did not see inside of that was women of color made mention in those contexts. I was wondering why you didn't talk about Walona or Thelma from Good Times or Felicia Rashad from the Huxtables and stuff like that. I was wondering why we didn't include the woman of color inside of that equation. Can you shed some light on that for us, Walter?
Absolutely. Well, if you notice, there are some movies that are colorful. All right. I brought out a few movies that was.
Right, Napoli Ever After. You talked about. You also talked about the fatal. The one. What was the fatal? We just talked about that. The one with Martin Lawrence and the other. Yeah, you talked about that. Yeah, you talked about a few of them. Okay, so that's where you encompass the women of color in that dynamic.
Yes. So to answer your question, I did not want this to be an urban book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted this to be an all-compass
commercial.
Yes, this is a commercial book. This is not to the black woman.
Come on.
This is to the woman. Period.
Well, that's the reason why I asked, because it wasn't women from all walks of life. That's the reason why I asked the question.
Yeah, well, but you notice you said there wasn't a lot of color women in there. It was these shows were white women, and it's not that easy to find Asian movies that I could have put in there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or Hispanic movies, right? But because the center of mainstream is white movies mostly, I figured that's it.
That would cover the gamut.
That would cover the gamut. You know what I'm saying? So that's why. Yeah. I didn't want this to be an urban book.
Yes.
Hey, I dug deep before I leaped. Now,
you did.
But we're gonna go over here to the mistress. The interesting parts about this mistress individual is, it's kind of interesting as to all the effects that you utilize: the peacock effects, the Clydesdale effect, the eye of the beholder effect. It sounds as though the guy in this. Do you remind me of my Jeep effect? You use several effects as far as with this particular woman that you necessarily didn't use with the other women. It sounds as though there is some magnificent obsession attached to this particular woman, as she's the perfect idea in his mind of the type of woman he wants to express himself with, if you will. But the converse of that comes when you talk about the physical component, where she doesn't want to get dirty. She doesn't want to have sex for extended periods of time. She doesn't want to kiss. She doesn't want to get her makeup messed up, mess up her hair, things like that. Tell us about this particular woman in your world. This particular woman you had the encounter with and the relationship with. And then, Charles, we want you to tell us about your mistress woman.
You want the mistress?
Yeah. We want you to tell us about your mistress woman that you experienced.
Sure. I have a lot of effects in here, because the fans of the Sir Walter Jones Show know that for the past 5 years, I do shows that's called The Effect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
The
okay.
Effect.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
that's
that's
your
why.
signature
That's a
statement.
tagline. That's a tagline.
So
I got you.
so my
Gotcha.
followers,
They get what you.
they,
They get
yeah,
that.
they get that. And so I'm branching out a little bit more. And then I love psychology.
Okay.
I've been studying for so long, and so I
Mm.
use that also with that. And that's one reason why I have Dr. Joyce Graham to the fore. All
Okay.
right. But this woman is a woman. This mistress is extremely desired by men more so than the side chick, because with the side chick, there's really only one thing that he gets out of her is that sex.
Mm.
That little money and babysitting the kids, that doesn't mean that much. You know, he can get that pretty much anywhere. All right.
Okay.
But the mistress is all encompass,
Okay.
and it also can be a world. It's a clouded world.
Mhm.
It's an altered reality, but that altered reality, it feels like he's on vacation a lot when he's with her.
Mhm.
He doesn't feel that way with girl A, because when he gets through the whole climatic thing, he don't want no part of her. He's done with her. But with this girl, mistress,
Mhm.
he wants to continue with her. I mean,
Mhm.
once she's extremely beautiful in his eye, his
Mhm.
perception.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous. All right. I talk about even the asymmetrics in the book. Okay.
Right. Uh-huh.
And how things are line up.
Mhm.
Why our iPhones are so pleasing to us
Right.
is because the design, the way it
Yeah.
looks. And so she's everything, and that's why politicians, when they cheat on their wives,
Mhm.
they might cheat on their wives with girl A or girl B, but if he leaves his wife, he's not leaving his wife for girl A. He leaves his wife for the mistress.
Yeah.
Preachers have left their wives for the mistress, not the girl A.
And
All right, so
you also interjected the Noel Jones effect and also the Hillary Clinton effect encompass this woman as well. What you saying that right now? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So these men who are attracted to the mistress see someone that he can possibly be with for the rest of his life if she's a plan B.
Someone he can groom.
Yeah, and groom, yes. Just in case things ain't happening at home, he's got a way out. It's like a person who's looking for another job. He's working on his job, but he's bored with his job.
Yeah.
He don't quit his job. He puts out a resume, and he really wants to work for that company. And if that company says, you know, we want you too, then he does an exit plan to get up out of this company to go to that company. And that's what the mistress is to him. She seems to be the most desired to him in the book.
Mm.
And you know, there's some components in here. There's one more question, and Charles, maybe of course, either one of you guys can shed light on this. The age that you indicated for a mistress, you said 25 to 35, but I thought about that in the dynamic of a lot of times in that age group, they're not necessarily positioned to be self-sufficient. Okay, so I was wondering why you chose 25 to 35 in that dynamic when I went to go do my research about a mistress, the average mistresses are more mature in age as far as for this particular type position because of traveling and things like that. Some of the younger women aren't positioned to be able to do those things necessarily. So I was wondering why you picked that age group.
It could largely play a slight hold to his age, and he's not going to. Most men don't desire up,
right?
They desire down. So that's just what it is. And so when I think of a mistress, I think of the word almost. She's not my wife, but she's almost. She's the unofficial wife. She's the unofficial girlfriend. All those things. Because you have already ran her through your psychological approval of all the things that you would accept or want out of your girlfriend, right? She does them. She's just not your girlfriend. But the trick is, the mistress is not going to hang around unless she's been made a promise and given a plan.
That's it.
So this is why you see these ascensions of the mistress when, like you said, when the pastor divorces his wife, or when the guy you noticed so long, he leaves his wife, breaks up, and all of a sudden, here's this person. She was already there. She was groomed. She was made a promise, and she was given a plan. And so that's the only thing that will make a woman stay still. Now, she's going to do her, but she stays still emotionally because she's like, I know he's going to do this. He says he's going to leave her, and he's already, I know he loves me. And so she's committed to that, and she stands on it, and she's just not going to move. Now, the mistress, like I said, the mistress has, the scary thing is, in most cases, the mistress, outside of something that you may find more attractive than your person, the mistress pretty much aligns like your woman. And so I kind of said it like this. One lays with you, right? I'm talking about the side piece. One of them lays. The mistress lays and walks. Yes. So you take her places. You go here. You do this, that, and the other. Yes. You're not afraid to be in public. You're not afraid to go to Florida to the beach because she is on another level. Right. And you are trying to get her to buy into your system and who you are so that as you're selling it to her, she's like, okay, I'm going to wait, Walter, because you said this right, and we're gonna do this. And so it's just like, it's a both of them, the side piece today. One thing we left out is today the side position has changed. Yes. Side pieces of old aren't like that no more. They're not just sex no more. Now they are well positioned, and the mistress is kind of fading out. It's more the side woman. It's kind of her day. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole new different commanding of how things are going because the side woman has become far more visually pleasing today. Back in the day, like you said, she might be halfway, she got a good shape, but she don't look too hot, or like you said, her self-esteem is over there. But nowadays, it could be your boss, your corporate person. She's somebody's side chick, but she plays her point real well. That's true. So it just depends.
So, there's some components. It's okay, Mr. Dixon. We expected that. We made room for that. Those tangents that you have, we already know. The audience is aware that the tangent was coming. They were actually anticipating the tangent. They just didn't know when it was coming. They were anticipating it.
Absolutely.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and share some of these effects for those that don't know, Walter, because a lot of people are asking, what are these effects that I alluded to earlier? So I'm going to share a couple of them just so people can have a glimpse into what you mean by these effects. The first one is the eye of the beholder effect. Now, all these are relative to the mistress. The eye of the beholder effect, in my travels and discussions with men of different races, I noticed that their taste in complexion and shade may vary but slightly. Most Americans prefer dating and marrying within their race, but the gap is closing in, especially post-Obama years. The beauty industry and magazines dictate to us what is considered attractive, yet in the real world, men still go with their own gog. The eye of the beholder effect. The next one was the Clydesdale effect. These women are admired by men because of their long legs and the way they strut. Then you got the peacock effect. She is poised, walks with dignity, has a subtle switch. In the Bible, Solomon compares the Shunammite woman to Pharaoh's chariots. You are exciting, my darling, as a mare among Pharaoh's stallions. Songs of Solomon 1 verse 9. Then you go to the Willy Wonka effect. In the 1971 movie Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory, the young Julia Dawn Cole plays the spoiled Veruca Salt, who makes demands on her wealthy father Henry, played by Roy Michael Kenner, and he gives her whatever she wants in the movie. We never see where there is a mother. So, and then you got the You Remind Me of My Jeep effect. In 1995, R&B singer R. Kelly released a self-titled album with the hit song You Remind Me of My Jeep. The lyrics left nothing to the imagination, cynicism and filled with double what is that word? Entendres, I'm sorry. The raunchy tune perfectly captured how men compare their women to objects or possessions they cherish most. Wow. That was interesting. And then another thing with the Noel Jones effect. He had a girl B who wanted more from the relationship. He went to counseling to better himself, and she was frustrated because it had nothing to do with her. It was about his improvement, not their improvement. Then the Hillary Clinton effect. In 1992, in a 60 Minutes interview with the governor, husband, Bill Clinton, Hillary publicly insulted the First Lady of the country music, Tammy Wynette, by using a popular song lyric to justify her position on sexual allegations against her husband. I'm not sitting here like some little woman standing by my man like Tammy Wynette, she said in response to a question about allegations of her husband engaged in a 12-year extramarital affair with Jennifer Flowers. Interesting. Very interesting. I tell you what, Walter, you know, I got some good reading out of this. I really did. So, which takes us to the soulmate component. Mr. Dixon, do you want to go and tap into the comments really quickly to see if we've missed something intriguing on tonight, if you will, sir? Before we tap into the soulmate.
All right. Tonil Jackson says the point was to provide a universal appeal. Gracia says the Clydesdale effect. Because Joy Daniel, wow, this is good stuff. Capri says, well, if we look at the definition of a mistress, she is in charge. She is in charge, head of the house. She has authority. So I can agree with you on men leaving wives for mistresses. Let's see. Mr. Benson says that's not necessarily true. Promises and plans aren't always the end game. Okay, Katanya says, wow, side chick lays with him and the mistress lays and walks with him. Gracia says, true, sometimes it doesn't work out and the mistress has drank the Kool-Aid of deceit. True. Marcus saying, Marcus, he's clowning here. He said, them is too many effects. I don't think it's that deep.
You know, the one thing I noticed about the mistress, and we're going to head on to the soulmate here. Okay. In the concept of the mistress, there were some things that you said that caught my attention. You mentioned encompassed in this individual, she was not maternal. She doesn't cook. She doesn't clean. She doesn't like kinky sex or anything like that. So basically, this woman is the trophy wife, if you will. I don't want to be touched, taste, handled, nothing. I'm just the trophy wife. I look good for the camera, basically. So I was looking at that and I thought to myself, now why would a guy want to marry her if she doesn't have any of those maternal qualities that he would want within a wife? That just made me think about that.
It works with his environment. It works with his cause, rather. Like, let's just say an NBA player.
The toilet be dirty.
Huh?
Until he get in the house with her and the toilet is dirty.
Well, I know this, but I'm talking about mistresses are typically. Let's not forget the big component. A big component. Most mistresses are associated with affluent men. They're not just your regular dudes working. Right. Mistresses play those roles because in 9 times out of 10, they're being well taken care of and compensated to do so. So the reason why I said she's a tad bit wife quality, tad bit. The reason I say side piece quality is because she's playing a position.
Right.
It's a role. She's playing a role that's adverse to the role. So, so she's a little bit of both. And yeah, she's going to be some eye candy because he's saying to himself, when I go out here, when I do this, that, and other, I need her to be here. So she may not be able to clean, but I'm going to go ahead and get the person to come clean the house. We'll get the maid. Don't worry, baby. It'll be all right. You see it on TV all day. You look on these reality shows. You see these guys, and they be mixed cultures, and the women have a mixed. The women might be Puerto Rican or whatever she is, and they have people coming in doing things for them because she's playing the role of just being. You just look and play the part. Don't worry about the rest. You know what I'm saying?
He's right.
Yeah, that's true.
She's a wolf in sheep clothing.
Yes.
You have to understand. Yeah, because. And I might have alluded in the book about the way to a man's heart is not through his belly. You don't feeding him won't keep him.
Right.
That's why he leaves his wife. She cooking. But the way to a man's heart is through his chest. That's where his ego lies.
Yes.
Understand? And so the mistress know how to pound on his chest.
Right.
So she don't have to cook. So this thing is where a man is, and she's more in control than he is in many cases. She's in control because she's directing the traffic in a sense. All right. So his home is being without. Dirty house, no home cooked meals.
Yeah,
but
out all the time,
you see what I'm saying? But yet he got this fine woman at the house.
Yeah.
So there's something missing. She got his mind.
Yeah.
Because she know where that chest, that ego lies.
Right.
All right. And so when men, a lot of times when they cheat on their wives, a lot of times the woman that he cheated with is not even as beautiful as his wife.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But he knows that something's missing. Something's missing in her. Yes, and so she speaks to it. And so that's why I talk about. I think there was an earlier question.
She's not being so. You said why is she considered? What's the word you asked?
Yeah, there was an earlier question.
Side chick. You were trying to say why, because I think it was more of a negative description. If you were saying why did you describe this particular person like this? I forget what you said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was when we were talking about the side piece, and I was like, it's the outline has honestly, the way the outline is structured, it's almost like an air of one woman encompassing all these equations almost, if you will, at certain times and various stages of her human existence. She could have possibly been this person in a particular scenario with a different man for a different reason, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So the way it's designed, this could literally be talking about one person with all of these different attributes at a specific time in her existence. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So we're going to go head over to the soulmates. And in the soulmate dynamic, that's where you talked about the part where we say, surely, Walter, you're not talking about me. That's the part where you made that comment when you did when you first started out in that chapter, when you were saying, well, you don't know how your man feels about you. You may say, surely, Walter, that's not me, but you don't know how your man feels about you. So that's when you talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
So the profile of this woman, referred to as a soulmate, this is the woman that he can't live without. He may lovingly call her wifey, quote unquote, because he knows his life isn't the same without her. This is the woman that he would be willing to give up everything for because she is his difference maker. Okay, so in this particular chapter, Walter, I of all the chapters that I read, I found you put yourself a lot more of Walter encompassed in this particular dynamic. And so, which leads me to believe that this particular woman was the woman that you sought after for your existence in your particular life. And this is what you had. But I heard you mention earlier in the show that relationship has since been dissolved. Share with us what happened with this soulmate and how it ended up. You made a comment in the book how we start off, we love, we fall in love, we fall out of love. That was in your author's notes in the beginning when you talked about Valentine's Day 2009. Remember that? And you talked about how you were on a bench all night, and your friend was saying that he wanted to do something with his lady, and you were saying that you had plans when in fact you didn't have plans, and then you talked about that song that you wrote and things like that. So, talk to us about this soulmate, because apparently this woman, you met her in 1981. So from 1981 to 2009, something transpired in that time frame.
I didn't marry her.
Oh, okay. That's just somebody you mentioned. That's an honorable mention.
That's an honorable mention.
Okay.
And the reason why, right, it's an honorable mention. And we're great friends today.
Okay.
The reason why I mentioned her as an introduction to Girl Seed, because I talked about how Girl Seeds are usually homegrown.
Okay.
They are, and I think I brought up the movie Eddie Murphy, Coming to America.
Right, Coming to America. Mm-hmm.
She said there ain't no black movies in this book.
That's not what I said. That is not what I said. I was talking about sitcoms. Let me go ahead and qualify myself.
Okay, all right.
You were talking about sitcoms.
Well, she be on it, Lord. I kind of like her, though. She all right. But I talk about how the girl in the movie was homegrown from the time she was born.
Right.
she was raised.
She was
to
bred
be,
for a purpose.
Yes, for a purpose.
Right.
So this girl in 1981, to me, I felt she was bred for that.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't marry her, but
Okay.
I was in love with her for many years because
Mm-hmm.
there was something in her foundationally that I was attracted to.
Okay.
And then what I did was I searched the world looking for
a clone.
a clone. You
Yeah.
understand? Clone. So this soulmate was very important to me. That's why I put my experiences in. I've been married twice. So I put my experiences in Girl C more so than any of them because the other girls were like flames in the sense.
Well, Girl C seems to speak to an involvement in your life. That's why you mentioned the four women before him.
Yes, absolutely.
The soulmate is the end result of his maturing and his appreciation of what he has maybe made light of over his years of past. Right?
It's as if he was raised.
Lord, thank you for breaking that down for us.
All right. His thoughts are very similar.
Very similar.
Yes.
And if you notice, I put her in descending order.
You sure did.
By his desire.
Yeah.
Right? Because it ends in separation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So this seems to be the typical situation.
Play out.
Yep. In an American marriage.
Right.
Half of marriages, 50% of them end in this thing. So I needed to be true to the commonality of America by doing this. I didn't want this to end in ever loving ever. What they call it?
Cliffhanger. Happy ever after.
Happy ever after. I didn't want that to end that way because that's not typical.
Yeah.
And it wasn't obvious. And obviously it wasn't typical for me because I did it twice. You understand? So that's why I felt it was okay to put my life and world in there, my personal experience.
So you bring up a point that makes me think about something. So again, as men, I know sometimes it's not as easy for us to shed behaviors.
Yes.
Sometimes, unless we really just say, you know what, it's not worth that type of risk is not worth that reward.
Right.
I need to kind of take another path, look at my life and say, look, you've done these things this way, and look what they have gotten you. So how about you put on another thinking cap and go another direction? But that was the point I was going to make. You said something. What were you going to say? This, I get too many thoughts. This happens when I get too many thoughts in the room. But anyway, no, what I was saying is, we get to these points when I know what I was going to say. Yeah. I was going to ask you, did you ever say to yourself, do you think your experiences with women 1 and 2, I'm talking the side chick, was that 1 and 2? Which one is
A and B?
And the mistress, right?
The side chick is A, the mistress is B.
Okay, A and B. Do you feel as though they may have left some negative residue within you that maybe even though you walked away from it, you're like, I'm getting married, this is for my life, I want to do this. But sometimes if we're not careful and if we don't really watch, we are stained. We might go out, your woman is like, I got my white dress on, and she's like, come on, put your white suit on. I'm cleaning them, baby, and you turn around, you see all these black footprints and different colors on your suit because you're a little stained and you haven't quite flushed to really get them out of your system. And I'm only saying this because sometimes, even not being a married guy, I've been in situations where I feel like the road I have traveled has foreran me. And when I get up there, I see the construction turn left. I'm like, oh, what happened? I done destroyed that road too. You know what I'm saying? And so unless you say to yourself, look, I got to stop here, right? Let me deal with this. Then I can move on. It can be something that can really follow you if you're not careful, subliminally. Because to know him, he's a good spirited guy. He's funny. I mean, he's capture your attention when you listen to his broadcast and stuff like that. So seemingly to him, he's like, I'm fine, right? I'm fine. I'm suitable to do this, that, and again, if I wanted to. But sometimes internally, we have to really ask ourselves, are we clean in here? Because sometimes this is where the residue builds up in here. And for men, in our brains, we kind of see women certain ways, and it's hard for us to see them in their raw beauty of who they are, because we're looking at some dirty components of our past, of how we don't trust, because we've seen it. Sometimes when you've seen it so wrong, it's hard to accept it so right. You understand what I'm saying?
It's a great
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
I know a politician right now who was running for an office. The father was not in the home.
Right.
It was just her and her siblings and mom.
Okay.
She turned out to be a doctor.
Okay. She went all the way.
And the siblings turned out to be doctors and lawyers, and they're very successful.
Right.
And she pretty much says, I pretty much didn't need that father. I said, there's something missing in you. There's a void still there.
Yeah.
You think it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
You have a void.
Yeah.
Right.
She said, no, I'm fine. I said, let's talk about your relationships.
Okay.
Right.
To bring that forward.
Yes. And when she told me about her relationships, I said,
there you go.
you see, she said, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're chasing after something.
That image that you didn't have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your question to me about the residue of those two girls, it wasn't nothing they did in me. I did it to them.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I poisoned these women.
And played on your psyche.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
And the reason why I poisoned these women, and they might have came to me already poisoned by some other men.
Yeah.
Because I know
that's how it works.
Somebody's talked about the crazy woman.
Yeah.
That man might have made her crazy. Whoever said it, she is right.
Yeah.
A lot of these women are crazy because some man did that to her.
Right.
All right. And her reaction to it, fight or flight, caused her to be this way. So this girl in 1981, I was chasing her after her like a person who is hooked on drugs. They're looking for that high, that first high. They can't get it. They keep chasing. She was my first high. So I'm chasing after her, and who I stumbled across? Girl A. And then I stumbled across girl B. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm putting into these women this desire that I'm looking for. Hey, are you her?
Yeah.
Are you 1981?
Yeah.
Gotta go to girl D. Are you 1981? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was doing that to these women. And that's why I had to resolve that in chapter 7.
Okay.
Chapter 1 through 6, women will read that and say, this is crazy.
Yeah.
No, I'm none of these women. You understand?
Right.
I said,
I'll get you.
I got you.
Yeah.
Chapter 7 will show you really which one you are.
Right.
Wow.
Chapter 7 digs into the renewing of the mind, and then it speaks to the various different female characters from a biblical perspective, and it kind of ties everything, kind of glues everything together. But let's talk about this woman though, this soulmate woman, and we're gonna turn the wheel so we can get to a close. She's the one. She doesn't ask him for anything but his time. She remembers his words. She edifies him. The Minister Jones effect. She's cunning and knows how to get his attention. He trusts her with all that he has: family, feelings, finances, future. She's a nurturer. You've mentioned in here about some things that your wife taught you in your marriage, but there was one thing that caught my attention with this, and it made me think about an experience I had when my husband was living. You talked about how you had given yourself over to this particular ministry. You had been working with them for years, and someone else came in and they did whatever you used to do, like played an instrument of some sorts. And the pastor edified and praised them as though they did something spectacular, but you were never recognized for your gifting and your talent. And you talked about how you went home and you got on your knees on the side of the bed and you wept in your wife's lap. And I thought about that. I said, that is powerful, because a lot of women would say, oh man, wipe your, don't do that. Don't be crying and carrying on. You're being a punk, man. You should have just said something to him or whatever. You talked about how you held yourself together long enough to get to your peace, which was your wife at the time, to be able to release what you were feeling, and how she reassured you of who you were, why you were created, what you were competent and capable of doing, which brought me to that whole thing of like, that in itself made me think of what a relationship is really supposed to look like, that purpose person, if you will, for the relationship, for those, not necessarily all the high times, but the low times when you have to face the reality of what life is really going to dish you. You don't know what the dish is going to look like. But this particular time in your life, I thought that was a beautiful component that you brought into the book. Of everything that I read, that was the thing that stuck out to me most, was that incident where you actually found refuge in your wife. And it made me think about Proverbs 31, where his heart rests safely in her hands. That's what it made me think about when I saw that. And then you talked about she cares about his total well-being. He's physically attracted to her. There was something that you mentioned in here. You talked about how he looks at woman A and B, and he finds her alluring and this and that and the other, but he looks at his wife from different lenses, if you will. So basically, what she did to draw him in, as far as the makeup and all that, she kind of toned it down once they became one. Is kind of what I gathered from how you described this woman. She also loves him unconditionally. She's his ride or die. Her mission is to please him by any means necessary. She's his personal nurse. She prays for him. She doesn't mind being the breadwinner if there's an instance of an emergency to where he's not working. She gives him sex whenever he asks for it. That was interesting because you brought some bullet points in that equation where you said it may be boring to her. She may not want it. She's spiritual and was raised to never deny him.
Yeah.
Spiritual was raised to never deny him. And I thought about that and I said, oh, that's interesting because you would want encompassed in the scope of that relationship for that to be a healthy component, because this sounds like it's a little air of dysfunctionality where she's just giving in because that's what he wants in that moment, but it's not fulfilling her need. You know what I mean? So it kind of made me think about how infidelity creeps in that type of dynamic. You know what I'm saying? Because both of them are not gratified by that experience. It's only one-sided. One person is benefiting, whereas the other person is basically putting on an act, if you will, basically. You know? But the part of here that I wanted to get to, and we're gonna start working on getting to a close. You said the part where she prays for him. You put an interesting bullet point behind that. You said they once prayed together, but when the sex stopped, so did his desire to pray with her. Can you elaborate on that? I've never heard of that before.
Absolutely. Men say some of the craziest things during sex. We say it because, first of all, we want the sex to continue, especially at that moment, until we get what we need. Yeah. Woman says, she'll say you love me. I'll say it.
It's the promise room.
Yeah, that's pretty much it is. Yeah. Buy me a house. Okay, you got a house.
It's the what room?
The promise room.
Yeah. Stay whatever, until it's over. Right. Sex in a marriage for a man, and to a lot of men, not all men, it's important. If sex is important to a man in a marriage, he needs to have it. He needs to have it. And so because he's having it, he's satisfied in that area, then he's willing to give back to her whatever she needs, whatever it is. Yeah. And if that means praying, then by all means. Yeah. If there's a trade-off in the sex in the bed, there's a trade-off. Right. When that trade-off, when that contract is broken by not giving me sex, then you can't get the things that you need or want. And many times, and when it comes to prayer, notice, that's why our churches are filled with women and not men. Yeah. When it comes to the spiritual lives, the women are the ones, seems to be the ones who initiate prayers and interceding for others and what have you. Baby, can we pray? Yeah. All right. And that's from pastors and bishops and apostles. Many of them do not pray at home with their wives. They do not.
Right.
They won't do it. Right. She has to beg him, pray. Yeah. But if somebody call his office, a woman said, he gonna pray. You see what I'm saying? Right. Yes. Yeah. So I had to write that part in the book because many, I have a lot of Christian followers, and they identified with that portion right there. The women told me, right there when you said prayer, my husband, who is the pastor, don't pray with me. But he goes to church and pray with all these women. Or he goes to Pastor Study and pray all this stuff. And I realized that I was doing the same thing as an ordained elder. My wife said, "Baby, let's pray." And I was finding all kind of excuses.
So you know what happens to us sometimes in that scenario? What's that? As men are typically the visionaries, right? Yes. So women are gifted to follow visions. Yes. We paint the picture, right? And we hope that we can convince and and encourage our wife to say, babe, do you believe this?
Mhm.
Come on, this is what I painted over here. Like this? Okay, this is what I have envisioned for us. However, men, because we are the visionaries, when the woman is asking us to pray, it's almost like saying, wait a minute, I'm the visionary. You just supposed to follow the vision. Don't get me to pray for my own vision.
That's true.
I've already set this forth. It's a psychological thing, but that's I didn't even think about that part of the book. That part about the praying part is significant because a lot of men, we're not proud of. A lot of men don't, like you said, they don't pray where there's access.
They won't do it.
The women don't get praying for their prayer partner's friend or somebody else. Now, I'm not saying men don't do it sincerely, because there probably are some, but some men that do it, they do it because they know that it is a win-win smart tactic.
There it is.
And they do it because it's leverage. And if you do it, you may not mean it seriously, but if you know how to pray, you can right now, Father, she's sick, not feeling well. And you ain't sincere about it, but you know it's going to make her say, well, he prayed for me. He can come over anytime. It's a shoe-in. So if you want to turn on that edge of that part of spirituality is dangerous. When you get to that level, that's really crazy. Yeah.
That's why when I saw that, when I saw how you tied it into the physical expression, I said, what? And it struck a chord in my brain, like, why would that and that go hand in hand? Now that you guys have broke it down, because it did, to me, I was like, that don't make no sense. Why would you stop praying because then now that you guys have, you and Charles shed light on it, now it makes sense as to why the guy is withholding that particular dynamic. But one thing that you mentioned in the book as well, when you just spoke about that, you said your wife would try to get your attention for you to do certain things, and it wasn't until she actually asked to speak with Minister Jones as opposed to her husband was when you actually stepped into your vestings and got totally dressed in your clergy, and then you showed up as Minister Jones and you gave her that time that she was requiring. Yes. Really, she was looking for her husband, but the minute when she asked for Minister Jones, it's almost like you went into acting mode. Like, oh my God, it's time for me to go on stage. It's time for me to perform. It's time for me to perform. And so when I saw that encompassed inside of this equation, I said that is very interesting that it took that drastic approach to get you to respond to her. I was thinking in my mind, what was going on at that time, if you can recollect that era that you were in? What was going on at that time where your wife felt like she's being ignored by you?
I wasn't praying with her. My wife was a prayer warrior.
Okay.
And
you had disconnected.
I disconnected from that part.
Gotcha.
I thought it was overkill in many cases. Let's do some.
You're right. Let's just be honest.
You're always
too spooky sometimes, man.
Have you ever heard a lawyer say, "Why do we always have to talk about law?" Yeah. You ever go to your doctor and doctor's like,
I don't want to talk about this.
I
do this all day, every day.
I don't talk about this. Okay. So ministers are the same way,
Right.
I don't want to
do enough study. I don't want to
come on. Right, so I wasn't giving her what she needed spiritually. All right, so she had to get it from other ministers. She wasn't getting it from her own home. Wow. So what she did was the right thing. It was strategic and cunning. Yeah. But she, by any means necessary, she got what she.
And that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and it worked temporarily, but it did work because I came to myself and realized I'm not giving my wife the spiritual food that she needs. Yeah. But somebody who calls me on my office phone right away, Father, in the name of Jesus.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right.
You know why we fall into that? Because it's tied to our image.
Yes, it is.
That request is tied to the external image of walking. So I need to keep this up. So let me honor that request. At home, you just hush up because you my wife. You know I'm a minister, and I got too much on my plate. Leave me alone.
That's it.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's really it.
And that's exactly how you actually sliced the pie in the book when you said that spoke to who I was as a person. As far as me, that spoke to me to say, okay, now she needs me to be this dynamic minister that I am, and that's respected by the public and acknowledged by those. And I recall when you talked about the Hispanic community that you guys lived in, and how your neighbors would call you father whenever they would see you in your priestly attire, if you will, and they would call you father as reverence and respect to you in that capacity. And then how she turned around and used that same thing to get what she ultimately was desiring from you, in that particular dynamic. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Sir Walter, I'm gonna send my Cash App information so you can go ahead and pay me for this, because once you go on Oprah.
Because that's pretty good. I will.
But honestly, on a serious, on a very
Okay, go ahead.
serious note, though, on a very serious note, I think it's a good opportunity for you to go ahead and promote your book and how people can gain access to it for the viewers who are interested in purchasing the book. Of course, I was being facetious with the Cash App Ministries, but nonetheless, I know that is a way for individuals to be able to purchase,
Support. Yeah,
to be able to support your movement with the book and everything. Can you share with first of all, thank you, Mr. Dixon, and I want to thank you for being on the show tonight, first and foremost. Definitely allowing me to dissect your book. I appreciate you giving me grace to do that.
I'm glad you ain't cuss out. Well, talk about my book, my blood, sweat, and tears, and then gonna slice up my pie. I'm a man. I wrote the book. Go ahead, all right, go ahead. Okay, all right.
So, I just can't with him. I just can't. But honestly, we definitely do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with us about the book. And I was honored to be able to read it and ingest it in its totality, and definitely be able to discuss it with you intelligently. I didn't want to get on here and not be aware, of what was inside the book and what spoke to you. I wanted to make certain that Mr. Dixon and I were on the same sheet of music as far as us knowing full well what was encompassed within the pages of the book, So I definitely appreciate that, and how you shed light on the gray areas that may have not necessarily been black and white encompassed in the book. But definitely share with our viewers how they can get access to you as far as in your social media platforms. You mentioned that you had your talk show, and also how they can gain access to the book.
Sure, absolutely. Is it possible to answer a question here?
Absolutely.
Kimberly Adiva asked a very important question, and it's a question that's posed often. Walter, you mentioned her approach worked temporarily. Any suggestion for how a woman can permanently translate her needs to her mate? A great question. Number one, her what she did could have worked for me permanently. Unfortunately, she did. It was both of us. I stayed in that mode, and I wanted her to continue to help me be a better husband.
Okay.
She moved from that place.
She got drained.
Yes, yeah. She did get drained. But and there were other things that got in the way.
Right. No,
that got in the way. It was not other women, but there were things within the house got in the way. And
you mentioned that she tapped out, is how you expressed it in the book. You mentioned that she tapped out.
Wow. Absolutely. Once they tap out, they're not trying to help you anymore.
Yeah, they're done with it.
They're trying an exit plan.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Kimberly, once you find something that works on your man, stick to that. Be patient and continue to work on that thing that works.
And certainly don't pose as a flight risk.
Yes.
That loses it all.
Yeah.
When you become a flight risk to a man, you can say you're going to help him all day long, but all he sees is you got wings in the bag, and he's going to always stay shifting because he's not comfortable to plant his feet with you.
Charles, what do you mean by flight risk?
Meaning, when that person has always got their bag by the door.
Yes.
You're almost too done too quick. I'm done. Wait a minute. You know what? I'm done. This gets old after a while. You know what I'm saying? Either be done or stay. One of the two.
And that's good. And when again, I was married twice, and a lot of times I interchange people. When I make examples of my marriage, I never say my first marriage or the second marriage. I always say I was married, and then this would happen. Why? Because I still protect my ex-wives. I protect them.
Oh,
And
nice.
I don't want
nobody else disrespect.
Right. I don't want people building a map and say, "Oh, that must happen to this woman." It's not in this area. None of your business which one it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
very wise. Very wise.
Yes, right. So in the book, I don't give names.
That's smart.
And then and the examples that I use, I'm kind of vague and some of the examples.
You won't be pointing at her.
And my wives know which one
who is who.
You know, but y'all don't.
You don't need to know.
You don't need to know. But you talking about the flight risk.
Yes.
One of the wives says, "Okay, I'm tired of marriage. We got to make this work. You know, we don't go out." I said, "Okay, you know what? This week we're going out. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. I had a plan already mapped out for her. Thank you for letting me know, because I'm thinking the marriage is okay. A lot of men think that things are all right.
Okay, you're right.
Until you tell us something is wrong.
It drives you nuts.
Yeah, we don't know. We're like sheep. We're dumb sometimes, right? So I said, I'm gonna work this out. It was only 48 hours before when I came home, all her bags are packed.
Oh, wow.
And her friend was moving her out of the house.
Wow.
So to your flight risk situation, you're right. To her question, you're right. It's like, I just told you I'm making a change this week. I've already ordered this. I've put some finances together for this. And only 48 hours, you're moving out. So you told
That's a lot.
You know, so
and you now in your mind you were trying. Like you said,
man,
I am trying.
I was ready because I didn't know we were that bad. But you told me this. I felt so betrayed. And
it messed you up for a while afterwards.
It really messed me up. So it's like, I ain't never doing this no more. I ain't never doing this no more. And it hurt me so bad, you know. So I'm like, well, what do I tell?
How did we get here?
How did we get here? And how do I tell other men? You know, how do I tell? So that hurt me bad. So I use these experiences in the book because I just need people to see that you ain't the only one that's going through these kind of things. Yeah. All right. There's a plethora of people out there going through the same thing that you're going through or worse. Yes. So this is my story. This is the story of your parents and on, with the hopes that you continue to read till you get to the last chapter. Yes. And then you see this girl called C7. Yes. C7. And all these girls have a name. Yeah. Every one of them have a name. Right. All right. And C7, her name is Glory. Just for the first time, I'm revealing this to the audience. Right? Yeah. Nobody knew that was her name. Okay. Gloria is, and people say, I'm all these. Why can't you find somebody who's all those women? That's C7. Yeah. She's every one of them. She's all encompassing. She's all encompassing. People say, but ain't girl D crazy? Yeah, he's attractive.
He likes a little bit of all that.
That's why I mentioned that earlier, that there is an all-encompassing equation within the scope of the book. That's why I mentioned that.
Absolutely. And I wanted to be well-rounded. I wanted to come to an end, some type of end, because actually my first ending was a non-ending, meaning all is vain. I was just going to quote Ecclesiastes and say, you know what? You tried all this stuff, it ain't working. It's so vain anyway. Just walk off. Just walk off. Then I said, no, you can't end it that way. There must be an ending. But where's the encouragement? Okay. Where's the encouragement? And that's why I brought in Proverbs 31. Right. She was that C7. She was perfect for that man.
Now, would you say, so are you explaining her as a soulmate?
Yes.
You're saying, okay. Now.
She's soulmate and more.
All of these things, okay.
Oh my God, she's everything.
And you know something, I know we wrap it up because we're right at our typical our extended show time. You know, we use this at 1 hour, but we do extended segments a little bit, you know. Yeah. But I wanted to think about this.
I did say that this was going to be a special segment, so you know, we already knew it was going to be a regular show. But you know what, Walter? I'm waiting on Volume 6 where you discuss and disclose the situation with that lady who you went over to her house and you guys had that get together, and as you everybody was gone and you were there, you were left, you and the homeowner were left at the house, and so she asked you to stay longer and you said no, I got a long drive. I'm telling you, I really read this book. You said I have a long drive, you know, I gotta go, and as you left out, she began to try to undo your pants, and you left it as saying continued in Volume 6. I said, oh.
Oprah Jr. over here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, honey. Welcome to the book club, honey.
And a lot of people all that. Isn't there going to be the 4 men that women desire?
Yeah, that's somebody else said it to me.
Yeah. No, it doesn't work that way. Actually, no, it doesn't work that way. And there's a reason why. In Volume 6, I talk about why it doesn't work that way.
Wow.
Volume 6 is called the Ultimate Man Book, and it talks about these men and their attributes and what they all about. So that's the answer to this book.
But and this is the gift, because from your perspective, you're saying this is my take on the guide to men. So you're giving them a gift from your perspective. Yeah.
Pretty much. Right. Yes. Yeah. All in this book. It's a men's chronicles.
Right.
And when we're invited to these talk shows, these groups, and a lot of times it's all women in the audience and the men are on. We'll never want to be a part of it. So for many years I'm invited to these all men panels, and the women in the audience, and they come to the mic and ask these questions, and never fails. Every time we give an answer, somebody in the audience, if not many of them, say, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. That can't be. How are you going to tell me what I'm feeling?
Man, how he's feeling.
This is what we're feeling.
Yeah.
You understand? And you're trying to relate to me what you feel as my woman. I'm trying to relate to you what I feel, and you both can't see it.
Right.
So this book is exposing what men want.
Yeah.
This is what I want, whether it's right.
Yes.
Whether it's
We're
wrong.
not saying that. We're just telling you.
That's irrelevant. That's not relevant to.
Right.
Not relevant in the context in which you disclose it, because it wouldn't be in an outline form if there was a right or wrong.
Exactly.
It's basically an ideal interpretation of one man's mind. That's all it really equates to. It's not a combination of various men. It's Walter Jones' perspective on this particular subject. So it's not like it was a collaborative approach or anything. It's one man's ideal as to how this plays out.
Absolutely.
Through my 50-something years on the earth, this is what I have experienced and seen.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's why I say it's a tell-all of pretty much my life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can get the book on Amazon.com. You just type in there's only one Sir Walter Jones on Amazon. I was shocked. There's only one out of all those millions of books. And you'll see that book right there, The 4 Women That Men Desire. You can go on YouTube, The Sir Walter Jones Show, and you see all of my.
This is the book.
There.
And you're gonna give me the link, right? If you give me the link, I'll post it on my page.
Yes.
And I'll tag you to it so they can get to your page too.
That's cool.
So I'll put the link up of his book where you can purchase it on my page, and I'll link it to you.
Okay.
And put it in the chat as well, Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, I'll put it there too. Yeah.
I'll
tag you too. I'm sorry, I'll tag you too. Yeah. What else?
Final thoughts, Sir Walter. Did you enjoy the communication on this evening? Am I okay? Am I going to be fired after this? Or am I going to have to go find a new position? Is Charles gonna ask me to resign? Respectfully resign.
After we got the camera, we'll talk. But can you believe it? No.
Well, I tell you, I've done a lot of radio shows.
Yeah.
For the book, a lot of them, and there's more that are calling.
Absolutely.
And I will say this is the most unique perspective of the book and interview that I've had so far.
Right.
Extremely unique. I love the hardcore push from her.
Yeah.
Because that was needed. I was hoping that.
Preparing you. You're going to need that.
You know what I'm saying? That's preparing for Steve Harvey. Absolutely. And I need it from a woman.
Yeah.
Because the men, sometimes
we're going to flick you to
we're going to pile up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I need it from her because she asked a very hard question.
And she represents what they think.
There it is. And I'm glad you say that because I represent what we think.
Yeah.
You see, because every man that read the book said, man, you know what? I hate the book because you're telling the code.
Too much secret.
Because this is me, bro. Yeah. This was me, man. This is me, bro. All right? Yeah. And they said, these women going to hate this book. I said, yeah, I want them to hate it. But what it does is it causes a conversation. Yeah. And there are churches they're putting this in their Bible studies. They're having discussion groups on this because they want to save these women who are
fall against these roles.
Yes, man, because these musicians, these pastors, these deacons, all these guys.
But you know what the sad thing is? Very few of the women that you described in this book are organically that person. Most of them are moved by emotional periods in their life.
I agree.
They play roles according to the hurt or the joy. The joyful woman wants to be the soulmate or the happy, whatever. The hurt, sick, tired of lies, cheating on you. She becomes, you know what? I'm Mistress Side Chick. I don't care. I'm doing me. I'm gonna get this. So when I think of this book, I think of it in the perspective of most of these 4 women can actually be one.
Yes.
Psychologically, they break up into 4.
Yes.
But it could be one. So really, that's really
I agree.
how it happens.
That's why I said that when I read it. I was like, this could literally be one person's plight, their whole, who they are in one. But you know what? It's funny that you mentioned church, and of course we're going to shut it down after this. But there was a part in the book, Charles, I totally forgot to mention this. Y'all forgive me, but it popped up in my brain. There's a part in the book where this really tripped me out, okay? So Walter says that he was in this meeting, right? And the guys were talking about church girls being so easy, right? So he said he was in this meeting, they talking about church girls being so easy. And so he goes on to say that there was this particular guy, he was dating this girl at the church, right? So the girl was at rehearsal at the church, okay? He goes to the church, he peeks in, she praising God and doing all she doing, right? He peeks in. The minute that he peeks in, she excuses herself from her assignment, gets her stuff, leaves with him, and goes to a hotel to have sex.
Oh.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
That just like was mind-boggling to me. I was like, are you serious? Like, she literally left everything that she was doing, grabbed her stuff, got in the car with him, and went straight to a hotel from the church to go have sex with this guy.
And that was typical. And that was typical. That was a typical day. You know what? When I hear women, especially women that are have positions in churches, when they asked, they said that can't be happening. I said, this happening right now in your church more than you think. It was so easy for me to do that. What that guy did.
Yeah.
For years, I was able to do that. For years, because I knew where they are. All right, and I talk about this in the book 6. I talk about the pimp and the preacher and how they are the same, one and the same. They use the same tactics. Use the same tactics now. Okay, right. And I talk
mind control.
Yes. What is the comedian pimp short with the straight?
Cat Williams.
Cat Williams talked about. He used the H word. You know. He says, "My house is a house where the hoes like to go."
Oh yeah.
They come to
everything. He caters to the environment.
Everything they need is in my house. Yeah. All right. Well, that's the way the church is set up in many cases. Yeah. Everything these women need is in the house. Yeah. And these musicians and these preachers can have their way. So this brother, he just walked. She was speaking in tongues and dancing. He said, and then she saw him and her tongue stopped. She stopped dancing, and she grabbed her
stuff and left and went to a hotel with him.
You know what it is? What we forget as either Christian or secular needs transcend location.
Yes, it does.
Doesn't matter where you are in church or not. People in church got needs, and they want them filled. Even after Bible study, after Sunday service, after singing in the choir. Let's just be 100.
But you know what, that's interesting, because when you did your show, you know, and y'all forgive me because I'm you know, I have a tendency to not forget much. But Charles did a show when you did that segment, Charles, it's been a while though. It was last year when you were talking about how last year in August when you did that show. You remember when you did that transparency time frame where you were talking about no longer breaking into houses, aka women?
Oh, well, I posted.
Yeah, you were posting about that transitionary experience that you were going through. You made mention inside of that and allude to what you're saying right now, where you made a comment and you said, and I quote, you said, after Sunday service, this is exactly what I would do, was I would go and get my needs satisfied immediately following service, and I would do it on a regular basis at, you know, when you were talking about in your past and how you were talking about how that's why you felt like you were never able to get to that total level where you knew you were supposed to be, because that was a barrier there.
Yeah.
in your
I,
life.
I think that was when I was speaking about how I would be ministering, I'll be singing or
Right,
whatever,
right,
and right,
right,
and then when I would get up, I'll be filled with so much conviction from either the night before or either the
right.
plan
Or
ahead.
after
You
that,
understand what I'm
right.
saying? So, but I said the thing that was so convicting about it because it did not stop the gifting.
Yes.
But that's
Right.
what makes you think. The gifting, you thinking, oh, I'm gonna get up there and sound flat because I did this.
No.
But then you can feel even guilty because people be like, go on and sing, like they bless you. You're like, well, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Right.
but
But that's what you were saying. You were saying it didn't stop your ability to perform. You
Oh,
were
absolutely.
saying
No.
about that.
And I took somebody I got off the organ and went down to, while the pastor got up to preach, I said, come here. And we went down to the boiler room.
Woo.
And had sex.
And y'all went and boiled on tonight. My Lord.
We went on boil.
Y'all went and boiled.
Yes.
My Lord.
And the church saved on paying the heating bill because we was the heat that
My God on tonight. Okay. On
right.
that note, we're going to close the church out on that note. I can't stay on here another second with y'all two. That's just too much information. Y'all have done enough on tonight. We're going to shut it down.
We've been delivered, though. We delivered.
Yeah, that's
on last thing, on Walter's, let's leave it on a good note from Walter's part about the soulmate.
Okay.
And now this is a multi-sided thing. We're not going to just leave it to make it seem like it's all about just what we desire, right? Because we understand women have their desire what they want. But so let's look at it this way. For the man and for the woman, I think people forget this. We all say we want a wife, I want a husband, I want my soulmate, this, that, and the other. Well, in order to really take care of someone's soul and to be their mate, you have to be all encompassing, caring about their soul. It's not just meaning, we're not just meaning spiritually. We're talking about you can't be with somebody, the person got kids, right, or whatever, and never talk about their kids, how they doing, nothing else. Never talk about how's your health, how's your health.
Talk about the mistress. That's in the
how
book.
is your health? How is this? There are components of someone's soul that
Right.
don't even get touched, but the desire is there to be someone's soulmate, and you can't don't desire something that you're not trying to feel.
Yeah.
And that's the main goal with it, because we think about, are you doing all the things for her, or are you really stepping up to the plate to be like, let me touch these areas of the soul, because I'm just touching one area, or I'm calling you or going out to the movies, but it's more to their soul and his soul. And I think you'll get more marriages if people begin to see that their souls are being tapped into. People will come out and say, you know what, this person has my all good in mind. You know, not just what they can be tangible with, but the whole thing. And I think we miss that. People are looking to see you tap in all areas. And I think this is where we've fallen out short.
Right.
But anyway, yes. All right.
That's good. And that's a great summary
of
the book here.
Yeah.
I saw all of the women
encompassed
in the one, and those turned out to be successful marriages. My mom and dad, again, almost 60 years of marriage. My mom, all 4 women to my dad.
Awesome.
We saw it. My dad talks about it. I just left them. That's why I came in a little late. I was with my parents.
Okay, awesome.
All right, and my mom is now wheelchair bound.
Okay.
Right? But my father treats her
like a queen.
Man, he literally picks her up and carries her wherever he wants. You know, he picks her up literally.
Well, Walter, guess what? That's because when you leave, she said, "Wait a minute, hold on." Yes, I was in the bedroom. I'm joking. Why you crazy, man? Anyway.
You know what, Walter, your story is similar to mine, almost to a parallel. Because I have 7 siblings. My mom and dad been married. They're younger than you know.
She said that.
Yeah, my parents been married almost 50 years. I had my minister's license when I was 15. We all musically inclined. I sang several gospel artists or whatever, even in the secular world. But I just thought that was interesting when you open up. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Well, even Charles, same thing. Our lives are kind of very similar in that we were all basically reared
big families.
These big families, and our parents staying together and stuff like that. Yeah.
Good stuff.
So
yes, well, so like we said, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Sorry for this is a special segment, so we went over it kind of on purpose. We wanted to make sure Sir Walter was able to convey his vision. We supporting him in his book and wishing him, Godspeed as he goes forward. And like I said, I'm going to post your book link on my page, and I'm going to tag all of you all so everybody can take part and begin to see who you are in your state of emotion currently. But anyway, and we'll go from there.
And Deborah wants to be the mistress. She says because
that seems to work out good for her.
She says I got to rethink this. She said, forget the soulmate. The mistress she does less and reaps the benefit.
But guess what?
Right.
The mistress does reap the benefit, but it is expensive to be upkeep to be
It
her.
sure is. Lord,
you got to go to all the places and buy all the certain things and look at certain parts.
Deborah,
everything, bags,
So
red
Charles,
bottles.
you did prereq that by saying the affluent man is mostly the guy that has a mistress.
Absolutely.
Because he can pretty much.
It takes a lot of work to go into being a mistress.
That lifestyle.
Externally, there's a lot of upkeep externally.
Yeah. Because you mentioned in there, you said she was high maintenance and a gold digger.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That description, yeah.
Yeah. I never had money because it was like if she say, hey, I'm hungry, I knew that was gonna cost me 50, 60, 70 bucks.
My Lord,
yeah, there was no McDonald's, there was
carry out stuff.
There was none of that. There was nothing. When she said I'm hungry, I mean
it's time to eat
steak.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Shrimp, lobster.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, I can't continue in this.
It's too much. Let's cut this on back.
Yeah. You said you can't continue in this.
Because with us men, we find ourselves, we often wake up and say, wait a minute, this charade is no longer fun.
Yes, no.
Because what drives you is what you're trying to do.
Yes.
And, you're trying to accomplish something, but so it keeps you pretending to after a while, look, the gig is up. I can't do this. That's it.
Payday loans.
That's everything.
Wow. You know what? I can't with y'all. Not the payday loan.
All kind of stuff. Yeah, it's too much.
All right, fellas. Well, again, Sir Walter, we definitely appreciate your time tonight. Thanks to our viewing audience. Without you, there'd be no us. Again, this was a very special segment on tonight that we did with Sir Walter. As Mr. Dixon indicated previously, we're supporting him in his endeavor to reach the masses with this information so we can make some more well-informed decisions as to how we want to be viewed by our mate and also to keep our mates once we obtain them. So with that, gentlemen, it's been real, it's been fun, but it ain't been real fun. So we got to go. You guys have a great evening, and Sir Walter, God's miracles and blessings be to you, sir. We'll see you in the future.
All right, I love you, girl.
And call me for the next interview. Whoever's interview, I'm gonna give them all the information on how to do it correctly.
Yeah,
all right.
She killed it.
And Sir Walter, you say good day to YouTube, Periscope,
YouTube,
and Twitter. They all
Periscope, Twitter. How y'all is? Thank you.
We're gonna put the book there too. Don't worry. We're gonna put it everywhere.
We will see y'all again next time on the Sir Walter Jones Show.
All right.
All right now.
All right.
All right, Mr. Dixon. Y'all have a great evening.
All right. You too.
All right. Good night.
Bye.